Before we begin today's episode, a brief content warning. Today we'll be discussing the Season 4 episodes Demons and Gethsemane. Both episodes contain discussion of and depiction of suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And I think the only news we've got is we watched some more horror films.
And what did we watch recently, Nick?
We watched Cobweb, which is a film I feel everyone should watch because, no, you can't tell where it's going to go at any point.
No, it was very unpredictable.
Must be the most psychotic set of parents I've seen in a long time.
True.
We also watched Deadstream, which I feel is a better follow-up to Evil Dead than either of the last two.
Yeah, I think it's a bit underrated. No one really talks about it. It's been out for a couple of years now.
But it very much is the comic horror that you were getting in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Whereas all the more recent Evil Dead seem to be trying to be more like first Evil Dead, which feels a bizarre direction to take things in as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I'm here for the comic horror slapstick, which Deadstream did provide quite a lot of.
Yeah, they were very much Deadites in that.
And also Mabel from VHS 99, which is always a treat.
Yeah, she was the female lead, the actress who played Mabel. She's fantastic.
She is. So if anyone hasn't seen the VHS series, which you may have run across in some form or other, VHS 99 has a segment where these two people get sucked into hell as a ritual goes wrong, and they meet this warrior person in the darkness who turns out to be called Mabel and asks her to put her name in the book of summoning or something so she can be summoned in future. And it's just the way she just says her name is Mabel is just cracks me up every time.
Just a really hyper-energetic kind of barbarian character.
Yeah, she's quite amazing. So yeah, she is the co-lead of Deadstream, which was a hoot to watch.
Yeah, thoroughly recommend that one, especially if you like kind of found footage films and dark comedies.
Yeah, although I suppose actually it's interesting, just as a kind of tangent note, we started off with The Last Broadcast, which we also watched the other day, and Blair Witch being the first of their found footages, and that starting off the tradition. And everyone actually credits Ghostwatch, weirdly, as being like the originator of the whole thing. That's more mockumentary. But the fact that Deadstream represents an even sort of more modern iteration on that, given it's a live stream, not found footage. Even though he has this faked up T-shirt, which is kind of spoofing the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Because he's on that T-shirt that says one guy from Ohio or something was lost and never seen again, or was found with his footage.
Yeah.
But he's streaming directly to the internet. So it's interesting that we've sort of it has progressed.
Well, that's kind of how horror's modernising at the moment, because the COVID one that was entirely done out of Skype, Host, is an absolutely excellent kind of fan footage style thing. That shows what you can do with such a minimalist modern method of a Skype phone call.
That's true, and we've got Unfriended Dark Web.
I like Dark Web. I thought that was better than the original.
Yeah, both sort of doing the weird low-key thing and low budget.
I believe Host's going off Netflix shortly as well, so if you haven't seen that, you really should check that one out.
Watch that one while you can.
Absolutely amazing, kind of short horror done on a shoestring. I feel we're getting on a tangent, though.
We are a little bit, so we shall, in the absence of any other X-Files news or...
I have some news.
Oh, you have some? Oh, yes. Go on.
It's our first anniversary.
Hooray!
Of this podcast.
We have done nothing to celebrate it because we actually had completely forgotten this was actually this close.
It's kind of appropriate that it falls on a season finale, though. It's
true. We have got fully 4 seasons in 1 year, which is pretty good. I did not think we would be this far through. I thought we'd be, I don't know, somewhere in season 2, actually.
I guess we've only missed a couple of weeks, though, so we've been kind of going through it.
We have. So it's pretty good. Do we have anything else?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. So we'll migrate off to the last 2 episodes of season 4, and after we're done with these 2, we will go through the best and worst episodes of the season, which we actually have multiple worst episodes to discuss, which is quite different from the previous season.
Quite, but I guess we'll get to that at the end.
We will. So first up, we have Demons, directed by Kim Manners, written by R.W. Goodwin, and first broadcast on the 11th of May 1997. Guest stars, we have Jay Acavone as Detective Joe Curtis, who I'm not entirely sure is actually named at all in this episode.
No.
He's a guy who's trying to basically convict Mulder the entire time. He was in Independence Day, Terminator 3, Dark Skies.
So, really?
The overlap is getting quite interesting where we're getting people in both And this one is going to take a bit of explanation, but it has to be flagged up, is Red Shoe Diaries.
I don't know of that.
Okay, so Red Shoe Diaries is semi-infamous because this is basically a softcore porn thing.
Fair enough.
Basically, it's people sending erotic fantasies to this guy who reads them and basically imagines them happening and they're acted out, and it's Skinamax, cheesecake, nudity, but nothing too explicit. Why I bring this up is not just because, hey, that's kind of funny this guy was in it, but who the host of Red Shoe Diaries was before he was famous elsewhere.
Go on.
David Duchovny. This was one of his first prominent roles before The X-Files, was being in Red Shoe Diaries. He was also in Sliders. And we'll see him again in Season 8, playing a different character, but the same character in 2 different episodes.
Okay.
So he'll turn up in Per Manum and Essence.
Okay.
And the other interesting person, actually, well, there are 3 other people, but one new guest star, is Mike Nussbaum, who played Dr. Charles Goldstein. He was, of course, in Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
He was also in Men in Black.
Okay.
The other guest stars are people we have talked about before. So we've got young Samantha Mulder. She has been consistently cast in Season 4 and since Season 2. So this is the same Samantha Mulder all the way through. And the same young cancer man, which will appear in this episode.
Of course, yeah. Wasn't it the same young Bill Mulder as last time as well?
It is the same young Bill Mulder, but he didn't actually appear on most of the cast lists.
So, I see.
Mulder flashes back to being in the attic with his sister Samantha while their parents are arguing downstairs. In the present, Mulder wakes up in a hotel room in Providence, Rhode Island, covered in blood. He calls Scully, who arrives, finding him in shock. Mulder has no memory of what he's done in the last 2 days, and Scully finds that 2 bullets have been fired from his gun. He also has the key belonging to David and Amy Cassandra. Scully wants Mulder to check into a hospital, but instead he wants to find out if he was involved in a crime before doing so. The agents visit the Cassandra's house where they meet the housekeeper, who tells them that neither of the couple are at home. Mulder, however, recognizes a house in multiple paintings that Amy Cassandra has painted, a house that is near his parents' summer home in Rhode Island. When they arrive there, Mulder has a striking pain in his head and flashes back again to when he was a child, seeing a young cigarette-smoking man in his home. The agents enter the house and discover that Cassandra's dead from 2 gunshot wounds. Mulder and Scully call the police, who take Mulder with them due to the circumstantial evidence against him. Scully performs an autopsy on Amy, finding a scab on her forehead. The detective in charge of the case tells Mulder they have found David and Amy's blood on his shirt. Mulder refuses to confess to the murders, saying he does not remember anything. Scully reports he found traces of ketamine in Amy's blood. The substance was also detected in Mulder's blood. Meanwhile, one of the officers at the station kills himself. He has similar symptoms to that of the Cassandras. Mulder again flashes back to his childhood and witnesses his parents arguing with the cigarette-smoking man. Scully sees Mulder the next day and tells him that she believes the Cassandras killed themselves after receiving psychiatric treatment and that Mulder was visiting them about their alien abduction experiences. The agents visit Dr. Goldstein, who was treating Amy with an aggressive method to help her recover her abduction memories. He also treated the police officer, but says he has not met Mulder before. Mulder has another flashback of Smoking Man arguing with his mother, Tina Mulder. Mulder declines Scully's repeated request he goes to the hospital and instead goes to visit his mother and demands she explain what really happened when they had to make a choice between him and Samantha. Mulder believes that cigarette-smoking man forced him to take Samantha. Mulder also questions who his father really is. Later, Mulder visits Goldstein and convinces him to treat him so he will remember what really happened. Mulder has further visions of the past. Scully and the police arrive soon after to arrest Goldstein, but Mulder has vanished already. The police and Scully find him in his family's summer home in Rhode Island and is able to calm him down. While Mulder is cleared in the deaths of the Cassandras, what truly happened when he was a child remains a mystery.
Thank you.
It's weird revisiting this one because, as I said, I think last time, I basically remember a bit of it and then I forgot most of the rest of it. And I know we had to have a look at the synopsis and what the episode is actually meant to be conveying, and it's not that clear in the episode.
I've got to confess, as I said to you when we watched it, I could tell what they were trying to convey, but I think you viewed it a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, I could be hanging on to the past, because what I thought was this was the family acknowledging that Tina Mulder had an affair, and that Samantha was really Cancerman's child. But no, apparently it turns out this is Bill Mulder and Cigarette Smoking Man telling Tina, yeah, we're gonna give one of your children is going to be abducted, and Gethsemane really throws this episode in some weird directions when we get to it in a minute, given what this episode seems to be laying out versus what Gethsemane will say.
Yeah, that's true. But we are following on from the Sophie's Choice thing we had previously when Mulder questions Tina, why did you pick Samantha?
Yeah, and she says she wouldn't choose.
Mm.
But we still know that, despite this episode, though, we still have that weird lingering part from Paperclip of it wasn't meant to be Samantha, it was meant to be Mulder at one stage.
Yeah.
Still very odd, and that's never really been grappled with.
I thought the inference back then was his father kind of saved him, but threw his sister under the bus.
Mm. And we don't know why this choice was even forced.
Mm.
But it's interesting to see we've kept consistent young cigarette smoker man and young Bill Mulder, despite the fact we previously had a different young cigarette smoker man who has never returned.
This guy they've got now, though, Chris Owens.
Chris Owens.
He is the absolute spit of William B. Davis. He's a really good casting choice to play his young self.
He is. He has got that right kind of threatening atmosphere to him.
Yeah, I think the Bill Mulder's quite a good choice as well, but Chris Owens in particular.
Yeah.
You totally buy that it's the young cigarette smoking man.
Yeah. But though, I mean, while we have got that part you said of this is the night they were told Tina that they were taking Samantha away, it's still, I can't help but flash back to Talitha Kumi with the whole I was much better at water skiing than Bill and other things. And it's just the loaded terms with that conversation is, it's hard not to connect it to this episode and say, oh, is this night that Bill Mulder found out that things weren't great in our Mulder household?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying you're not right.
No.
According to reviewers at the time, that is what we were supposed to be conveying. In fact, this episode had overwhelmingly positive views. It was really, really well regarded by reviewers at the time it was released.
Okay. I think the problem is just, I don't know if it's because we cut out the viewing order or it's not that memorable, but again, I didn't remember a lot of this one.
No, I've got to admit, it's not... I did remember this episode, but it's not one of the ones that kind of stuck out in my mind. Like I said back when we watched Leonard Betts, I think, some episodes, even though I haven't seen them for years, I remember cinematically.
Yeah.
This one I could remember the plot, but I couldn't remember it in that much detail.
No, and I think, weirdly, I feel one of the problems ultimately is that the actual plot of the episode is kind of incidental to what you're meant to take away from it. Because this whole thing of, and it's a potentially interesting plot as well, of this psychiatrist doing something that is just about above board, but seems to have severe possible side effects. But what we're actually focusing on is this revelation on Mulder's past.
We don't really...
It's not even a revelation, really, is it?
It's even less and less as the episode goes by, because we never kind of say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Cassandras killed themselves.
Yeah.
It feels more like a hypothesis. We never kind of find out exactly what happened in that room.
No. All we know is that they were high on ketamine at the time. So was Mulder, and so was this police officer. And the police officer as well, I feel, feels like a bad red herring.
Yeah.
Given they've got the shot of him cutting out his own face out of the photographs. And say, oh, okay, so this is the real killer. And then he kills himself, 10 minutes later?
Yeah. With the way the episode kind of wound up, and I'm skipping ahead a bit, it made me think of a kind of counterpoint for Kill Switch.
I can see that.
Because you had the same kind of ending with, except this time Mulder having the psychotic episode and Scully talking him down rather than vice versa.
Yeah.
But Kill Switch had a bit more of an impact because you had that wonderful scene with Margaret Scully, kind of appealing to Scully as her mother and being the one who ultimately manages to break her out of it.
Yeah, whereas in this one, Mulder may have burnt a bridge. I'm not sure how long it's going to take Tina to come around to talking to him again. Because he has really annoyed her this time. Well, for genuine good reason.
With Scully as well, and I know we can argue Mulder's not in his right frame of mind, but we know that Scully's seriously ill with her cancer at the moment, but then Mulder having this potential, showing the symptoms of an aneurysm, incredibly serious life-threatening condition, and completely disregarding Scully, a medical professional, when she's telling him to get tested. You think it should kind of hit harder with the, Mulder, what are you doing? Scully's wrestling with this potentially terminal diagnosis and you're behaving like this.
Yeah, although again we'd observe that Scully's cancer is switching on and switching off as needed.
This isn't a Scully cancer episode.
No. I do remember, as for speculation back in the day, that around this time, a notion was building in the fandom, or at least it was certainly building amongst my group of friends who weren't internet savvy at this point, because again, it was early days and having an internet connection was not guaranteed. But there was certainly a building consensus that Mulder might be Cigarette Smoking Man's son. I don't know where this came from originally, because I think this is an after effect of Star Wars poisoning pop culture.
Yeah.
Because you get that notion coming into so many things after 1980. But the idea of Mulder being Cancer Man's son was floated and was bobbing around in the fandom at this point. And the reason why I said that thing about Samantha is, at the time, this felt like the rebuke to that of don't be stupid. Mulder is not Cancer Man's son. Samantha is.
Makes sense.
And that connects, of course, back to Tales of the Kumi.
You can certainly, I guess, make that argument just by the kind of, I'm sorry, fandom, but this kind of fan thing you often get where if two characters share a screen time, they're in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you had previously these sequences where you've revealed that Tina and the Cancer Man know each other.
Yeah.
So on that basis, you go, they've got a past together, they must have been sleeping together.
Yeah, but again, we weren't reading that much into the loaded dialogue in Tales of the Kumi. It was, and Cigarette Smoking Man having more of an appeal to this woman than he's shown to a lot of people.
Mm.
He was more concerned about Tina than he has been for a good chunk of the population.
That's true. The closest you've got previously is him saying he liked Scully.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a flippant offhand thing he says.
And it's given the state Scully has wound up in, the fact that that's liking Scully, Tina is treated with kid gloves by comparison.
True.
I mean, again, unfortunately, a lot of how the X-Files has been written forces me to say, I'm not sure anyone was thinking that hard about this behind the scenes. A lot of this is accidental. Just, again, we come back to, and I think we're going to get to it again when we do the wrap-up of the series, of episode positioning, because this came up, I think, in reviews for Demons. I think someone also made a comment that this was in the wrong place. I think it's to do with Scully's cancer. This needed to be shifted somewhere else in the season. This needs to come earlier, basically.
I think I read that in collaboration with the point about Mulder's potential aneurysm, is when you're already dealing with a serious health plot for one character, why would you potentially throw in a serious health plot for another character? It seems odd to do it at this time.
Exactly. And this is, like, Paper Hearts being my big example of this is a fantastic episode. It should not be in season 4.
Yeah. I do like the inference once again in this episode, despite it being Mulder's crutch in early seasons, that regression hypnosis is not a great thing.
Yeah, it's odd that we can't agree on that. It does actually seem to be that whatever the show Bible is, and we know all TV series have a Bible, that there isn't a page on regression hypnosis or something, because you've got things like Jose Chung casting massive doubts on this, versus Conduit,
Feel Where I Died, Shadows.
Yes, where we are taking it as kind of sacrosanct and, completely believable, though it's unimpeachable.
Yeah.
So it's very odd that this hasn't been hammered down inside the universe as one way or the other.
Mm.
Again, Sesame feels like it's cheating because it's actually going to throw the rules out the pram in a minute, but we'll get to that. I do think at least this is David Duchovny doing some decent-ish acting. I mean, I think Paper Hearts is still his high point, but he's doing okay in this one. Though again, David Duchovny seems to be at his best when he's making fun of Mulder.
Yeah, I thought this one was kind of interesting on the basis of Mulder's normally completely in control of the situation. Mulder, as we've noted before, has normally read the script and sometimes pulls the right solution out of absolutely nothing. But in this one, you've put Mulder at a disadvantage already, is that Mulder is put in a position where it's almost a locked room mystery. It's very clear Mulder is the killer. But then erasing his memory and us trying to have to work back and figure out how he's not the killer. Yeah,
and it just felt ultimately a bit of a cheat that the explanation is these two people killed one of them shot the other.
Suicide.
Yeah, murder-suicide. I do have a sneaking suspicion that, as with a lot of things with Mulder, while he didn't pull the trigger, the fact that someone else took his weapon off of him and did this probably means it's going to be fired anyway, or he's heavily censured for this.
There's been at least 3 instances where someone has taken Mulder's weapon for him so far, and it feels like the kind of thing that when you're in an occupation that requires you to have a loaded firearm on you, this is probably a bad thing.
Yes. And again, we are much better with mental health these days, even though we're still not perfect, but we were worse in 1997. So to have Mulder be able to have these aneurysms and breakdowns and go back to work by the next episode feels really strange again.
I think you've got it on the basis of, if we go back to season 1, Young at Heart, the one with the salamander hand,
Yeah.
is how damaging it was to Mulder's career when he had that early incident where a cop got killed because of his actions.
Yes.
Or rather, his lack of actions.
Yeah.
Is comparatively how they evidently came down on him then, versus to this and Paper Hearts and Pusher, where other people have managed to get hold of his gun.
Yeah. I mean, you can make the argument that it's a problem of TV longevity, because it's in it, and also raising the stakes. So in season 1, you can put that into the past, and you're also much more careful with procedural stuff. Now we're getting into the more fantastical reasons of the X-Files. We can do this to more different episode, but it can't have an ongoing impact, otherwise you're going to derail the future.
Yeah. I've got to admit, though, from a kind of writing standpoint, and from a how to write satisfactory stories, is if you're thinking this through like a murder mystery, the ending of this episode is so lame.
Yes.
You had me at first. It's like Mulder wakes up in bed with a fever, covered in blood. He thinks it's actually 2 days earlier than it is.
Yeah.
He very quickly realises that 2 rounds from his gun are gone. Both him and the car he's driven in are covered in blood, and he's got somebody else's house keys in his pocket.
Yeah.
You've got a compelling mystery here of, oh my goodness, we know Mulder's not going to be the killer, but what has happened here? What sequence of events that made it look unequivocally like he is the killer?
Exactly.
And then to go back and it's kind of something, murder, suicide, you just happen to be sat in the room at the time. It's rubbish. You wanted some kind of interesting, Poirot-ish, complicated way that this has been done in some way that's really simple but not obvious at a glance.
Absolutely. I mean, I will offer you for a way I would just consider much better done, is Dark City.
Yeah.
He wakes up in a hotel room without his memory, finds a bloody corpse on the floor, and panics, flees, and has to solve the murder mystery to understand what's going on, while people are trying to hunt him down for this murder, and because he's got this sci-fi fantasy destiny about him, and you've got 2 different plot lines running across each other, and that's really cool, and it ends so spectacularly as well. There's not a limp squid at the end of Dark City.
You also arguably got, and slightly more obscure, the old video game Fahrenheit, which I think was on the PlayStation 2.
I'll have to take your word for this one.
It was one of these early kind of cinematic games, like a forerunner to the likes of Heavy Rain and Beyond and things like that. But again, that opened with you in a truck stop bathroom with a dead body next to you and the police already outside. And you're working back from there of how you got into this situation and who was actually responsible for this murder that seems quite obviously your characters at the start.
Exactly.
It's a lot more compelling than how we've kind of wrapped up this, and it, essentially the murder being superfluous to what's actually going on in the episode, which is this very dangerous, very controversial version of regression hypnosis that this random psychologist is doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, psychiatrist is performing.
That Mulder thinks is fine.
But ultimately as well, it's, even if we look at this on the flip side, is Mulder's weird regression flashbacks and what's going on with that doctor don't really give us any new information either.
I was going to say that's, I think, the biggest problem. And I think this is why, back in the day, this is why we came to the conclusion it was revealing Samantha's parentage. Because as you said, otherwise you learn nothing, because it's that argument with his parents and Cigarette Smoking Man in some capacity merged with some shots from Little Green Men that were clearly meant to equate as this is all to do with Samantha's abduction.
I did read online that bit confused people. That's why I know from what I read online it's supposed to be about them discussing the Sophie's Choice.
Yeah.
Is that some people got very confused because this all takes place in this kind of holiday home that's not the same place Samantha got abducted. So some viewers thought this was supposed to be depicting the abduction and then got confused as to why the location had changed.
Again, it does come back to a point about Little Green Men, and I suppose the explanation that Bill Mulder and Tina Mulder knew this was coming.
Yeah.
It excuses a bit, but if Samantha can be abducted from the Mulder family home while his parents are next door and they not hear anything despite the volume of that spaceship coming down and the lights and all the rest of it, could they not have had this argument somewhere other than when the kids were upstairs asleep? because it's almost a kind of studio apartment-y kind of look. At least there's not in a separate room. They're in kind of like a mezzanine floor with railing where they're sleeping. Yeah. Do you not think you could have done this outside? Do you not think there's a risk that you're going to wake the kids up? I know, for people who are in a secret organization that has managed to fool almost everyone for 50 years, yeah, they're really bad in their own homes. I understand, of course, that if they didn't do this, then Mulder wouldn't have the flashbacks, but as you said, I don't think we learned anything. At least nothing appreciably different.
I'm also going to question the fact, and I know Mulder has these kind of amazing lapses in judgment quite often, but if you look at the particulars of how this therapy works, is why would you let someone do this to you? Of, I'm going to shoot you full of horse tranquilizers, kind of put a load of flashy strobe lighting right in front of your vision, and then kind of conduct kind of like electroshock therapy directly to your brain.
Yeah.
Is, Mulder, I know you're not medically trained like Scully is, but what part of this sounds like a good idea? And not something that every step of it could be potentially fatal.
Yeah, and give you memories that you can actually trust are real. I do have to question as well, and it's an ongoing weird thread from Conduit, and we had it in Small Potatoes, is Conduit, Mulder got in trouble for a case based on a tabloid magazine.
Yeah.
Small Potatoes, that was fine apparently. And this episode, he's got a case or gone to this woman on the basis of her article in Abductee magazine. What are you doing, Mulder?
Oh, yes, I must admit, I'd almost forgot about that. Because, as I said before, it's kind of, the murder-suicide is completely incidental to this plot. But yeah, the reason he found her was because he believed her to be an abductee, or she believed herself to be an abductee.
And I think that's probably one of the other points where the episode struggles on, is, Mulder, there are a lot of abductees. I'm guessing it's the whole she lives so close to him is the only reason he's interested, because otherwise she has to have something really compelling for you to care about this one. Is it purely that she lived in a house you recognise? Is that really it, Mulder?
But before he had the hypnosis, did he remember that house at all? It kind of started coming to him after the regression hypnosis more so.
Yeah.
Because he only really recognises the house when he returns to her house and discovers her kind of art project where all she draws is that one house. Also going to go on a personal level again is the kind of relationship between Mulder and Scully, which is completely one-sided in this, is Scully cares for Mulder implicitly. We've seen it increasingly. It's a plot point in Gethsemane even coming up shortly. Is Scully's increasing reliance and, you know, not feelings in a romantic sense, but feelings certainly in a friendship sense towards Mulder, and her concern for him is Scully is a medical doctor. Scully expresses, you know, how he could be putting his life at stake and all the rest of it, and how concerned she is, how she thinks she should go to doctor. He completely rebuffs her.
Yeah.
It's like the manly macho man flu sort of thing of saying, oh, no, I'm fine. It's just a headache. It's not potentially that a blood vessel is about to burst and kill me. I mean, you're just a doctor. What do you know? And you think that with how Scully's proved herself through the season so far, this is so insulting to her and her intelligence.
Again.
And you just want to really grab him and shake him.
Well, I feel that's a...
Or, I'll go in Scully's thing, if she's genuinely concerned of him, really you should call in Skinner at this point and say, boss, I think Mulder's seriously ill, there's something wrong, he might have killed a person. Come in!
Yeah. Again, it's not clear why. And Skinner's not in this episode for no good reason either.
I feel Skinner should have something to say if, you know, one of the agents under his control has potentially murdered two people.
Yeah.
I mean, Mulder's arrested for this in the episode too, as no one reports this back?
No. He actually gets properly arrested this time rather than fake arrested.
It's not even a military jail, this is proper
police jail.
They read him his rights and everything.
Yeah.
Though to be fair, they do very quickly kind of discount him, largely because it's your favourite thing in the world of blood splatter.
Oh yeah, the thing that I think recently has been proven to be complete bunk. Sorry, Dexter.
It's super cool. When I watched Dexter, I wanted to be a blood splatter analyst. It looks like a really, really interesting job.
It does, but I think it's one of those, the actual provability of it is actually really, really weak when you get down to it. I know it looks cool and everything, but...
Who doesn't want a job where you're filling dummies with red paint and hitting them with a sledgehammer?
Well, and doing thousands of bits of wool connecting things together.
It looks really good fun.
It does. Well, I think that's the problem with it. It looks good, but it's whether it's actually usable is another matter.
True, but that is how they disprove it by analysing Mulder's shirt and saying that the blood on it does not look like it's spray from if he'd been the shooter.
No, it just means he was kind of just rolling around on top of their pools of blood or something.
Well, no, I imagine if you're near someone who's been shot, you'd still get a bit of blood on you.
Well,
to be fair, he has a lot of blood on him.
A lot of blood.
And none of it is his own.
No.
I think it's blood from both victims, if I remember correctly, as well.
It is, which is kind of what makes him culpable for the murder. Do we have anything else?
You did mention earlier about the kind of argument he had with Tina. I love that scene just from ditching Scully more than anything. Is when the two of them go back to Tina's house in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
He has this big confrontation with her and he just drives off and leaves Scully there with his mom. But she never actually refutes it when he questions who his father is.
No.
I think her response is, slap, I am your mother.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not hearing a no.
No. At the same time, this is not a conversation you want a confrontational aspect of. I mean, Tina does not like Bill Mulder anymore, at least not to a point, but yeah, she wasn't prepared to have that conversation with him.
The other thing we've only just really kind of touched on is the ending. The kind of showdown with Scully in which he essentially empties a gun next to her head. And how this hasn't completely eroded what trust Scully must have left for him.
Well, given we made that point of Pusher seemed to damage that trust.
Mm.
And that was one shot, wasn't it, or something he did?
Yeah, he fires one shot in Pusher. In this one, he empties the entire gun with poor Scully just stood there.
It seems to be a thing these last few episodes, because Skinner did that in Zero Sum.
Yeah.
It's, I know it's a dramatic thing, and I'm sure it's in some film or other, but it's not without its risks. It's really bad to have done that.
I think if you're that, it can damage your hearing and stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, I've never fired a gun before, but I imagine they're very loud.
Well, this is why, whenever you see them in the shooting ranges, they're wearing ear protectors. And when they do the bullet analysis, they're wearing ear protectors.
Other than that, I don't have so much about this episode, I must admit. The only thing that really stuck in my head was this bizarre medical treatment he's given in which ketamine apparently looks like Re-Animator serum.
Yeah. Oh, I think we made the point of, it's always green in these things. If you look at, I think almost every world medicine, it's clear or a bit cloudy. Nothing is any interesting colours.
I did Google it, and my search history is one day going to get me in trouble, but ketamine is clear.
Mm.
I was pretty sure it wasn't luminous green like the...
Re-Animator.
Yeah, the fluid in Re-Animator.
Well, the thing that keeps coming back to me about this is, it's a plot point in Knives Out. He's got the two solutions.
Oh, one of which is going to be poisonous to him and the other isn't, and they both look the same.
One of which is pure morphine and one of which is stuff that will keep him alive long enough for him to get to hospital.
Yeah.
And she can tell the difference even with the label switched. Sorry, people who haven't seen Knives Out. The point is, though, they're just kind of two murky vials of solution. And if you've ever actually looked at medicines, every medicine is like this. It's either completely clear or it's a bit murky.
Yeah.
You do not get green, you don't get red, you do not get yellow or anything else. If anyone injects you with those colours, well, it's either coloured water if you're lucky, or it's not what it's meant to be.
I believe in Re-Animator, they just made it out of whatever the stuff is in glow sticks.
Which looks great for a thing.
Mm. And you totally buy that, yep, that's something that's going to reanimate the dead.
But it's really odd to see it in the X-Files, which is meant to be at least a little bit more grounded.
Even as outlandish as this therapy looks, this therapy has no grounding in real life, of course. It was, for that was the one thing that was really jarring for me, and it's a small thing. It's like, all right, yeah, the flashy lights, the kind of electroshock therapy, fair enough. What on earth is that thing that he's injecting them with that blatantly is not ketamine?
But if we have nothing else, we'll need to go to a garden in Jerusalem, I suspect.
Ah, yes, the place where Jesus was betrayed by Judas Iscariot, if I remember my Bible.
Chris, what on earth are you on about? Because I can get what he's going for. I don't think he's doing this right again.
Yeah.
I will try and do this because I'm really bad at pronouncing this one. Gethsemane?
Gethsemane.
Gethsemane, okay. So I was right of Gethsemane.
Gethsemane, yep.
Directed by R.W. Goodwin, written by Chris Carter, and first broadcast on the 18th of May 1997. Guest stars. He's finally here. He's going to be an absolute pain. He's in only 4 episodes. It's Bill Scully. 4 episodes. Which seems low than I thought.
Really? Only in 4?
That's what Wikipedia was claiming, so we'll keep an eye on him. But
he's Bill Scully Jr. as
Bill
well,
Scully Jr.
just to be clear.
So this is Pat Skipper. who has been in quite a lot. So he's actually in Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Which we haven't seen. He's in Babylon, that film we saw trailers for. We could not figure out what the plot was. He was in Halloween, the Rob Zombie version.
Oh.
Yeah. He was in the Tremors TV series.
Oh, I liked that.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's been in Frasier. He was in Hellraiser Bloodline.
Which one was Bloodline?
Number 4.
Oh no, Pinhead in Space.
Pinhead in Space. One of the only Alan Smithy films I've ever seen. He was in Demolition Man. And he was in Predator 2.
Well, that's a mixed career.
Oh, yeah. The other guy in here is one that I suspect we keep on bringing up because we keep forgetting we've actually seen him, is Matthew Walker as Alinsky.
Okay.
This would be the old scientist guy who contacts Mulder.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, he was in Roland.
Was he?
He was. On the back of that we've seen him in a few other significant things, because he's in Alone in the Dark. He's the mad scientist in that film as well.
Ah.
Yeah, but we've done this reveal as well before. So, we've done him. So instead, let's go for John Finn, who plays Michael Critchgal, who will show up in 5 episodes, which is more than I thought.
Yeah.
He was in Cliffhanger. He was in Ad Astra. He's been in Cheers and Frasier, and will show up in Millennium.
Ah. I did recognise him.
So, would you like to give us a synopsis for Gethsemane? Gethsemane?
Gethsemane.
God damn it.
As we've seen the X-Files do now several times, the episode opens in media res to a police investigation which seems to be looking at a dead body that has been found in Mulder's apartment. Scully confirms the body's identity and then leaves. She then appears before an FBI panel which is led by Section Chief Blevins, who we haven't seen for a while, who's reviewing her whole work with Mulder on the X-Files. We cut back to a few days prior, where in Canada's St. Elias Mountains, a frozen extraterrestrial body is discovered by an expedition team. The team's leader, Professor Alinsky, sends ice core samples containing what could be alien DNA to Mulder. Mulder voices a desire to go and see the alien corpse for himself. He invites Scully to come with him, but Scully advises that she can't do so and it's something he's got to do alone. This is because she's recently had another test on her cancer and discovered it's now terminal. While Mulder is off on his investigation, Scully does take the ice core samples to be analysed. She discovers that they do contain DNA which is non-terrestrial in origin, but she's then attacked by a man who steals the samples. This lands Scully in hospital, where she is met by her brother Bill, who berates her for keeping the seriousness of her cancer a secret from her extended family. He also is very unhappy with Scully's decision to keep working. He reckons that she should care to herself and those who love her by stepping back from the FBI. Scully, of course, disagrees with this and does more research into her attacker, discovering it's a Michael Krishkow, an employee of the Department of Defense. She tracks down Krishkow and holds him at gunpoint, but he reveals that if he talks to her, he might be killed. In the meantime, Mulder and Alinsky return to the mountains to learn that most of the expedition team has been shot dead. The only survivor is a man named Babcock, who, although seriously injured, has managed to save the alien corpse by burying it before the assailants could find it. The 3 men bring the corpse back to the United States, and Mulder and Alinsky perform an autopsy on it, which Alinsky believes reveals it to be a genuine extraterrestrial. Mulder then leaves to meet with Scully and explain what they've found, but after he does so, an assassin arrives who reveals to have been in cahoots with Babcock the whole time. He kills Alinsky, and much to Babcock's horror, also kills Babcock. Scully introduces Mulder to Krishkow, who claims that everything that Mulder believes he knows about aliens is a lie. He tells him that his sister's abduction was fabricated and all evidence of alien biology are merely scientific abnormalities. Even the alien body he has just examined was a fake, deliberately planted to fool Mulder. Krishkow goes on to explain that the entire alien mythos is a hoax perpetrated by the US government. It's a cover-up for activities of the military-industrial complex. Mulder, of course, dismisses these claims. Mulder and Scully return to the hangar to find Alinsky and Babcock dead with the alien body missing, which is something that Krishkow told him would happen. Scully also reveals to him that Krishkow has told her that she was given cancer just to make him believe. Mulder, distraught by these discoveries, sits in his apartment and watches a conference about extraterrestrial life on television. The narrative then returns to the present, where Scully reveals to the panel that Mulder had died the previous night. The cause was an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head.
Da-da-da-da. Thank you. Blevins, where the hell have you been?
I don't think we've seen him since season 2, maybe?
I don't think we saw him in season 2. I think season 1.
Just season 1?
I think he hasn't been around. Conduit might be the last time I actually remember him.
Really? Conduit that early?
It might be a bit later than that.
Did he not appear like Erlenmeyer Flask tail end?
No, that was Skinner by that point. But Skinner wasn't an Erlenmeyer Flask. So a few bits before we get into it is I'm going to say don't do Kim's Conspiracy Corner this week.
You want to save it for after Redux?
I want to save it for after Redux because we've got a lot to get through.
Okay, I'll do it next week, not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't think... Basically, your Conspiracy Corner for this week would be... So, remember all that stuff we said before? None of it was aliens. It's basically the gist from this one. And I don't think that helps very much. The other is, Mulder, you've been told almost this exact story once before in a diner by a man making him out of mashed potatoes, but when someone else witnessed the same event, said you were ordering sweet potato pie. This is the revelation from Jose Chung.
I think the canonicity of Jose Chung's possibly in the balance.
Oh, it absolutely is. But this is the same revelation. Kritzkow is almost saying word for word what Jack Schaefer was saying in Jose Chung.
Should we note that Jack Schaefer couldn't refute Lord Kinbote, which means that he's still completely legit?
Exactly. I think that's really interesting. But this episode, I remember being infuriated when it came out. This was so annoying. And I also remember, because I think you found reviews that were doubting whether Mulder was actually dead. And I remember at the time as case of, absolutely not. There's no way.
I think it was interesting at the time because apparently a lot of major American publications, including things like The New Yorker, did write articles and comic strips and stuff on the assumption that Mulder had died. Because at the time, nobody knew where this was going, and it seemed legitimate that perhaps Mulder's entire belief system being dashed like this had led to him and he was going to be replaced.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know for sure, and I didn't actually find when the first trailer started showing up. I'm pretty sure we knew the film was in the works at this point. Given I did find that Chris Carter wrote it over Christmas 1996, 1997. So they knew the film was coming. So there's just no way.
It is, of course, hard to judge now in hindsight because we know the fact that there are, several more seasons to come, and we know that Mulder's not dead. So it's hard to watch this one kind of objectively and think, well, could you have believed this?
True, but I do remember at the time, no one believed it. We didn't know how it was going to work, and we won't discuss that till next week, exactly how this has been pulled.
I do think this is kind of weak again, because this isn't the first time we've pulled a season finale where we've made it look like Mulder's dead.
Yes, this
like in Anasazi.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is Anasazi's cliffhanger again. We've done this. And lest we forget, Anasazi's solution was one of the weakest things the X-Files has ever pulled. Because at no point they explain how it works.
True. I'm also going to go again from... I know I am Scully's biggest fan, basically. It's one of those things as when I was a kid, I was a super huge fan of Mulder, and as a teenager, it's like, no, Scully's just always there to drag him down. Mulder's always right. Why can't she just believe in him and all the rest of it? Watching this again, kind of older and wiser, Mulder, sometimes I just want to shake him, as I think I've said many times now. Is Scully, he doesn't know she's terminally ill, of course, but it's even from an outside perspective, is everything's about Mulder.
Yeah.
Is early in the episode, we discover that Scully's cancer is now terminal. This is it for her.
Yeah.
And it still boils down to being about Mulder in the end. It's like, oh, come on!
At the same time, we have got this weird lapse into Scully default to authority.
Oh, you mean with Kritzkow?
Indeed. Well, I also find it interesting that this comes after Tempest Fuge and Max, given one of the big things in Max was, certainly in the episode Max, is they had hold of the military guy. I can't remember his name anymore. The guy who was going to say, yeah, we deliberately engineered that crash.
Yeah.
And the coordinator says, all you've got is this guy's word. We have no evidence. And in this episode, Scully, Critchgall steals the ice core sample, and then Scully tracks him down. And Critchgall just says stuff to Scully, and she just accepts it all.
We saw it previously as well I'm bad at remembering the conspiracy episode names, but the one where First Elder spins her a story and she just rolls with it.
731.
Yeah, 731. Is no question at all of who's this man and why does he know this. We just go with it.
Yeah. What evidence does he actually have other than this train car?
Mm.
But, I mean, my biggest bugbear, and I've told this to you a few times, is how this thing with Critchgall works. Because Scully takes the ice core sample to be analysed. And they do actually say something that should set off red flags, but people just kind of fudge. Because Guy says it's got particular hydrocarbons consistent with air fuel, which is found in all ice on Earth. And she says, oh, so this isn't old ice. And he says, no, it is old ice. But what seems to be missing from that bit of dialogue is this is old ice, but it should not have these hydrocarbons in it.
Yeah.
And that bit's missing. And it feels like a really bad writing error, because that should be the ice core sample can't be used. Because that's the ultimate implication of what Critchgall eventually says, is that the ice core samples, they've been faked with ice of the right age. So while Alinsky is saying they can't be faked, he's not wholly correct, because you can fake it if somehow you have the right kind of ice. But by digging up and churning it, you've introduced hydrocarbons that shouldn't be in the ice. So that's point one. Then Critchgall may or may not kill that scientist guy, because he just walks out the plot. And then he steals the ice core sample. And Scully is kind of bafflingly slow realising that's what he's done. Then he knocks her downstairs, she tracks him down and everything. And then we've got the big thing of he relates to Scully that what the contents of the ice core sample, which is the chimera cell. I just read the chimera cells in Wikipedia. What they say in this episode is not a real life thing. The whole plant animal thing isn't true.
A biological chimera is normally something that's made of two other things, but it's not normally two other opposite things like that. It's like, sometimes you get interesting things like gandromorphs, creatures that are bilaterally half male and half female because they're two things that have kind of fused in utero.
Yeah.
That would be a chimera.
So, to actually have plant-human chimera cells, that's a big thing. Scully should be saying, let's get this to the Smithsonian or something.
This isn't something that exists in nature.
No, this is new. I mean, Critchgall insists it does exist in nature, which the US government have somehow suppressed from everyone in the world. We have to put that to one side for now. But this is a big thing you have here, Scully, and this guy's just stolen it. And then what got me, though, was he's stolen that, and the next day she tracks him down, and he says, then he told me about the chimera cells in the ice. It's like, yes, but he stole that and could have had it analysed and then told you had it. This isn't evidence of anything, Scully.
Mm.
What do you think of Scully not being... Well, I know Scully wants to keep on working. But she doesn't want to be ill at home or anything. It's curious that she has that conversation with Father Michael McCune? But she's sort of saying, I'm perfectly healthy at the dinner party. And apparently that's completely not true. We find out very shortly afterwards.
I think, though, she is healthy is the thing. Her cancer has metastasized, but she's not feeling poorly yet.
That's true.
She's said a few times when Mulder's been worried about her that she still feels fine.
Mm.
Because, that's one of the things with cancer is you feel fine right until you don't.
Is it Margaret Scully trying to impress her religious beliefs on her daughter? The fact that they're having this dinner party, it doesn't seem to be for any kind of annual celebration. And Bill Scully has been invited and might not show up, but this time he has. But Mum's brought the priest round.
The Scully family is very Catholic, though. It's Scully's faith over the course of these series we've noted has lapsed.
Indeed. But I don't think Mum brings the priest around very often. This is very much a case of my daughter has cancer. I need to do something for her spiritual life.
It's inferred that the only person who does know it has metastasized is her mother, because Bill's shocked to find this out.
Yeah.
Scully presumably is being more open with her mom now after a few episodes back when her mom got upset with her for hiding things.
Yeah. Do we want to say anything to Bill other than, piss off?
I can understand what he's coming from. I can understand why he feels hurt in the same way Margaret did, that he doesn't know about this, and why he's worried about her, but it grinds my teeth is, if you had a loved one who was terminally ill like this, would you want to think of them still getting on with their lives doing what they can, what will take their mind off things, what they'll enjoy in the time they have left, or sat at home getting sicker and sicker and just fading away just because it'll make your family apparently less worried about you.
Exactly. It's kind of like he wants her to get onto they've got a plinth laid out for Scully and she's going to get onto it and there's going to watch her die on it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to think it's, either working if that makes them happy or travelling if that makes them happy, whatever to make the most of that time you've got left. And Scully is evidently more fulfilled and happier being busy.
Yeah,
which seems completely rational. I think just going back to Bill Mulder, though, again, is we've kind of got a running tangent with this, is Scully always felt the fact that her dad didn't appreciate what she did, which kind of infers that in life he never told her he appreciated what she did, and always happy that she left her medical field or anything like that. And we're seeing this again through the son. Is it just a running thing with her very militaristic family don't really seem to appreciate her job?
I would go with, yeah, they don't seem to. I mean, would they be happy if Scully was an army doctor?
Or just a doctor in general?
Yeah, though I get the impression there is a militaristic bent to it, so I do wonder if she was a practicing doctor, that would be good. A naval doctor is better.
She was a field doctor, yeah.
Yeah. A person who has a medical degree and an astrophysics degree. It is astrophysics, isn't it?
Yes.
And is now working with a madman in the basement of the FBI debunking paranormal activities. It's not too snobbish to see where they're coming from. At the same time, hey, let her live her life.
I also see the twofold is Bill Scully Jr. is very down on Mulder, and I can see why, but at the same time because he does this whole, oh, where's this Mulder now? If you're so worried about him, it's a good point. However, at the same time, it's like, he's got a job to do, he works for the government, he can't necessarily always be here with me because he's doing his job.
Yeah. Although at that point in time, he is in the Canadian mountain range.
Yeah, but at the same time Scully hasn't been open with him. He doesn't know how serious it is. If he did, necessarily, I don't think Mulder would have gone.
No.
Based on Memento Mori and things, I think it's 50-50. He might have actually stayed there with her.
I was going to say, that's a good point. On the basis of Memento Mori, he wouldn't have done. On the basis of, what was the one before that, where he was a callous jerk?
But Memento Mori is the more recent one.
It is the more recent one.
I think you've had some interesting philosophical standpoints in this episode as well. The best kind of, I think, discussion in the episode is just before Mulder leaves when Scully says she can't go with him. They have this kind of slightly heated debate where Scully questions what kind of seeing this supposed proof in the ice will do and how it will change things for Mulder. And Mulder turns it round on her as well. What if I could prove the existence of God? And all the rest of it. What if God's existence were proven? What would you do to prove that? And Scully kind of falls in line on the belief of, but you don't have to do that.
It's kind of opposed how it all works.
Mm. Is what does it matter if, why do I need to prove something for everyone else if I believe it, is more Scully's feeling. But Mulder is more of the mind of, no, this proof has to be tangible, it's got to be out there. Which is almost kind of like they've swapped position in a way, because it's Mulder being the empiricist. Scully understands belief because she's a lapsed Catholic. She understands that there are these things to be religious that you have to kind of accept to be the truth and know that you can't prove them because that's part of your faith. It wouldn't be faith if you knew it for a fact. You've got to believe this is true, and that's what it is to have a faith. Mulder, on the other hand, was like this to begin. It's the whole, I unequivocally believe in my own experiences and that aliens exist. He had no tangible proof of that. But Scully, throughout the course of the series, has told him, it's like, no, you can't believe this kind of, you can't just say this is real, you've got to have the proof of it. Now this is what he's doing. Scully's saying, how far will you go? And Mulder is determined to get this tangible proof. It's not just so Scully believes him, but just so he has something, so he knows the fact that he's not just been doing this blindly for years and years.
I suppose...
And, this is possibly the best tangible proof we've got. I mean, they've actually got a frozen alien in the ice that he could see and he could actually analyse, unlike the ones that he's only got fleeting glimpses of previously.
It's true. I mean, as you said, that does actually make Scully's position slightly weird, though I'm guessing it's from a more pessimistic personal stance that she's taken that tact.
Mm. You also go into some of the more curious parts of the episode then, because the whole bit with Mulder kind of in the Yukon territory is very eerie, very, very strange bit that's kind of oddly reminiscent of the Dyatlov Pass incident, when they get up there and just everyone's dead. You've got these it correlates a lot with maybe The Thing, the Mountains of Madness sort of feel to it, as well as, that idea of, you go up there and this kind of camp full of people has just been wiped out in a night, looking like they put up very little defense for themselves.
Yeah. I was also, it just made me think, and it does come up actually a bit later, is you almost think it should have gone in a more Mountains of Madness direction. Like, it turns out that creature's not dead, it's broken out, murdered the camp, and escaped somewhere. But then later on, when they sort of get it back to the United States and they put it into the warm bath and everything, because I saw a film recently where people did this, and it did not end well for them. An almost identical rectangular block of ice. You thawed it out. Ooh, that was not a good idea.
The original version of The Thing, I think they do that, don't they?
I think both the first two ones, John Carpenter's and the 50s version. And also they kind of do it in the prequel, but we don't talk
terrible
about it.
Prequel, yeah. I think it's... At first I was thinking more like The Thing, and of course Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft is the kind of forerunner for The Thing. But the more I looked at it, the more I was thinking of actually you could correlate this quite interestingly to the Dyatlov Pass incident. A real-life thing that people have a pretty clear idea what happened there, but it's become one of these kind of urban legend conspiracy theory things about what went on because it's intensely creepy.
Yes.
Okay, let's go on the flip side of, our conspiracy counterpart, and this is Michael Krischkow.
Yes.
Who you seem to hate. You hate him, you hate everything he stands for, you don't believe a word he says.
I have difficulty believing him.
Let's go on the flip side of the first thing he says to Scully is, I know the men who gave you your cancer, pretty much.
Yeah.
How would he know about that?
Well, given
we've established in the episode, Scully has told very few people she has cancer.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not wide into the conspiracy.
So from that, if you were somebody with terminal cancer, would that not pique your attention? Would that not maybe tune you in? It's like, oh, hang on, I've told hardly anyone. How would this person even know I had cancer, let alone know what kind of cancer it is, what my circumstances have been, what my links back and kind of connection to this thing is?
No, I can fully believe that.
He also goes on to talk about the connections with her sister. Again, how would he know this? I think he's got quite a compelling argument that, particularly if you're in Scully's mindset.
Oh, true. Oh, no.
I
think Scully believing him, I understand. I think it's Mulder believing him, I don't.
But that's not what you said previously. You said that Scully had kind of deferred to a position of authority. I think he's made an incredibly convincing argument for why she would believe him.
Well,
even if you discount the ice core sample, he knows a lot of things he shouldn't know.
He does. I mean,
he's a Department of Defense employee. He's not anything special. He's just an employee.
True.
Why I don't disagree with you when you say that Mulder believes what Krischkow says very easily. At the same time, we've seen now that they will go to massive lengths to trick Mulder.
That's true.
Therefore, if you kind of add to that, it's like, this is what they've been doing every time.
I know.
When you've just seen them do this really elaborate thing where they've frozen a fake alien in ice to fool him.
I know. I do have to wonder what the success rate of that being found was.
Well, they've obviously kind of orchestrated it because Babcock's on the party.
Yeah, I suppose that's the downside.
And everything you say, it's like, oh, yeah, it must be true because they wouldn't have left it in such an obscure place. Babcock was on the party. They wouldn't have killed the entire party, but they did.
I want a Babcock killed the entire party, yeah. That much. Though okay, so we'll come on to I do feel at some point the amount of money they're outlaying to fool Mulder does feel like there are easier ways to do this.
But if it was easy, would it have convinced him? You've got to convince him on the basis of, again, it's like back in EBE, we're going on the basis of why would anyone go to this length to do it, therefore it must be the truth.
True. I mean, we are saying that Deep Throat and X are really terrible people then.
Oh, again, everything's a lie. I think the tagline on this episode was something like believe the lies or something like that, isn't it?
I think so.
I think you can make a compelling argument. I can see why critics at the time weren't sure if this is how we were going to flip it. Because you yourself have come to believe what Mulder does, and you are in his position as a viewer of now something has happened that shakes your belief. I mean, I don't buy for a second he's killed himself at the end of the episode, but at the same time, I can understand why in a series that's entirely built on lies and subterfuge and conspiracies, why this could be the conspiracy, this is the turn.
I can see that. I would still protest the shapeshifters, at least.
Small potatoes.
Which is unfortunately a pawn there. And I imagine that was not why small potatoes is in there. That was
there isn't, but now we've got the counter-argument of we've seen somebody who presumably is an alien who can do the same shape-shifting trick. Therefore, you cannot use small potatoes as an example. You can't use
shape-shifting.
The shape-shifting as an example. Would you like to try some more off your list and see if I can counter them?
I would. So I'm going to go with things that Mulder has seen. We do have weird radiation burns with no plausible source.
Except for radiation.
Well, but the fact that no one recovered that radiation source.
Yeah, but, I'm going to cite one of my favourite podcasts of Mr. Balin. Here is Mr. Balin kind of not frequently, has had some stories in the past where people have found random radiation sources and, it just kind of appearing as burns on people's bodies and with no plausible cause until they eventually unearth how they've randomly come into contact with this.
Okay. I'm still going to go for the alien spaceship in Paperclip.
Which one's Paperclip?
That was to be the third part of Anasazi.
Military-grade experimental aircraft.
It's a really big military-grade experimental aircraft.
But we've seen lots of them already in different shapes.
We haven't seen anything at scale.
You have in Paperclip.
The various clones over the years.
Well, we know that we've got our kind of shapeshifters in the sense of small potatoes. More of that.
Yeah.
You're not feeding out of his argument that everything weird you've seen is some kind of chimera that's been created.
Okay. Well, okay then. So Mulder can plausibly believe. As an audience member, I refuse.
But you're not feeding into the conspiratorial part of the series is you might have been fooled.
Oh, true, but I think the black oil is a good one. No?
Again, he's saying that everything is an animality that could exist in nature. How do you know it's extraterrestrial?
Well, I'm going to go with when the syndicate said, "Where's the UFO?" Because remember, I like the fact they always talked in very vague, generic terms, except for one time.
I believe that was the one time he said
it
UFO,
was,
though.
But they still said UFO once. I got that one.
But haven't we had the argument already that technically anything can be classified as an unidentified flying object?
We absolutely can, but that's not an argument the X-Files has ever made.
Except for now.
No, it hasn't made it now. It's not made it to the audience. It's made it to Mulder.
But, this is, like we were saying about the Daltov Pass, it's something where you can think of a plausible explanation from it.
Oh,
and
true.
people will still build on it. This is how a conspiracy works.
I know.
Is you'll have people who countlessly will not accept the kind of exposure theory of the Daltov Path, which is the most plausible explanation for it.
Yes. I would also offer, though, Telethikumi. Take a smoker man in a cell with Jeremiah Smith.
Who's another small potato?
He's just another small potato. They're not talking about small potato stuff, though, are they?
No, they never explicitly say what they are talking about.
They don't.
Though.
They're very cagey about that one, too. But this guy, also, Eddie Van Blundht, did not show any signs of being able to heal people with his hands now, did he? That's something Jeremiah Smith did do.
Animalities that happen in nature. You have had healers as well in Miracle Man.
Okay. Lord Kinbote.
We know not Lord Kinbote is genuine.
There you go, then.
But he's also not an alien. He's from the Earth's core.
It's still a weird mystery thing and not everything is explicable.
They didn't say that nothing's explicable. They said it's all things that just randomly occur in nature, as is Lord Kinbote.
Okay, I do actually have another one here, which is a weird one, which could be very difficult.
Go on.
Fearful symmetry. Not the explanation they offer at the end of the episode. The explanation as it occurs at the start of the episode.
Which explanation's that?
Well, they don't explain it, but the invisible animals and the teleportation.
Animalities that happen in nature.
We still see the teleportation, though.
Animalities happening in nature.
They don't have advantage about teleportation.
It's an animality. There's nothing to say it's alien. That's what you got to prove.
Okay, but
I think you'll find that everything's kind of difficult to prove is alien in the series and isn't just some weird freak of nature you've seen.
True.
I think you have the problem from a viewership perspective as if it's all been a lie is the answer, it's massively unsatisfying. I think this would have tanked the series.
Yes. There's that. But I also think the Mulder, you can try and explain away everything Mulder's seen. I think the audience has seen too much to believe this is all a front to make Mulder believe something.
Yeah.
Because a whole lot of stuff has happened. he did not even know happened.
But you can see, you've got to believe this from Mulder's perspective, as Mulder is the character that we're following, is once you start this rabbit hole of kind of solipsism, he's kind of doubting everything he thought he knew. And you realise the fact of, yeah, I've seen things like Tooms, Eddie Blundht, the Flukeman. They were all kind of weird, kind of aberrant things that occurred in nature. So what's to say that everything else I said, so it wasn't either constructed by the military or just some weird mutant?
That's true. I mean, I would like Mulder. I mean, his personal preference is he should hang on to Paperclip. The size of that vehicle is implausible.
Oh, you mean that military ship?
It's that military ship, but he should push back and say that was not a military craft. We cannot build anything that big. If it was that big, people would see it more often than they do. You can't hide it that easily. That's huge. The other thing, of course, though, is if the government were worried about this, should they not have not wiped his memory in Deep Throat? I mean, because letting him retain the memories from Deep Throat would be a great way for him to start doubting everything. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, true.
So him wiping his memory in Deep Throat is actually a count against the whole conspiracy thing. Because they said let him retain that memory, that might then tarnish any other UFO sighting. Oh, it's just another super advanced craft.
True.
So he's definitely dead.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We're not going to disprove that next week.
Not that he's in most of the rest of the series or anything.
You wouldn't have known this at the time.
I'm trying to figure out what we did know, because I know it doesn't actually end with a to be continued for Jane.
I'm going on the basis of the New York article and things as you didn't know.
No, we didn't know. I don't think we believed it for a second.
Because I think Chris Carter was quite impressed at the time of how many magazines ran these articles saying, well, is he really dead?
Yeah. I think the problems are, and I don't understand why people said that, because I'm pretty sure everyone knew there would be a season 5. And to do it without David Duchovny would be really strange at this stage.
Well, you could go with hindsight now for later as they do replace David Duchovny eventually.
Exactly. At this point, though, it was unfathomable, and I think we knew he was not subtle when he left. At the end of season 7, they were not subtle that he was leaving at the end of the season. This one, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else for this episode, or should we get on to this season as a whole?
I think you've pretty much covered everything. We cut off, of course, with that brilliant little speech from Carl Sagan in which Mulder might kill himself, which is kind of going to be interesting to follow up.
It is. I mean, it's interesting that they've used that as a framing device. It's also kind of weird that it's done explicitly as the TV in Mulder's apartment, which is an odd choice, I felt, rather than just putting it full screen. And it's nice to see Carl Sagan's very pragmatic view of alien life, completely at odds with how the X-Files has presented alien life at this point, or genetic abnormalities, multiple deviants running around. Oh my god, how many deviants are there running around? How many of them have poisonous green blood? To
be fair, we never saw any Van Blundt's blood.
We
didn't,
but no, they did do a paternity test. I don't have to draw blood for that.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, so there is but then we get into that biological difference and everything. But I think it's frustrating. I think for this is that Mulder never saw the black oil.
Yeah.
Tunguska doesn't count because it's not in the right way. But the fact he never got to experience in Piper Maru, because he should throw that back at Kritschgau if he'd ever seen it, but he hasn't.
Yeah.
What about the black oil? And Kritschgau goes, the what? Yeah, the black oil that possesses people and turns you into a nuclear bomb. And he's going, I don't know about that.
We'll note as well that the oil is the kind of medium. It's not actually the entity. It's something inside the oil.
Yeah, which is that's still one of the most weird things the X-Files has ever thrown out. So do we want to start with a overview of the season?
Yeah.
We've made the point a few times about peaks and troughs. And I think we commented like a few weeks ago that this has got some really good peaks, got some really low troughs.
Yeah, I think I commented, and I must admit, I can't remember who to attribute this to. I'm so sorry, guys. I looked back and I couldn't find the post. But right back near the start of the series, I kind of asked you all, what you thought of season 4 as a whole. And one person who replied to the tweet said they considered it to have the highest peaks and troughs of any season. And I totally agree with that now. Whichever one of you said that, kudos.
It's interesting because 3 and 4 are usually held up as the X-Files' heyday. I think 3 was more consistent overall.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think season 4, it has some fantastic episodes, but at the same time, I think I've got the highest number of bad episodes, and even when I posted my things on Twitter before asking for your feedback, more people responded actually to my post where I asked what your least favourite episodes were than you did to the one where I asked what the best was, and that's the first time that's happened so far.
Yes, well, I also thought it's very interesting that previously we've struggled to get people to articulate one episode they didn't like, and this time they're freely admitting 5+.
Yeah, some people had loads and loads of episodes they told me they didn't like, though I must admit that largely the same ones were repeated over and over again.
But that's an interesting distinction from how we've discussed series 1 to 3.
I know, and I've commented you on it before. But you guys love the X-Files. I know that. Nick complains a lot. Some of you guys are overwhelmingly complimentary about everything. And often when I ask you to tell me your worst eps, I find people are reluctant to do so, whereas you'll talk to the high heavens about your favourite ones, of course. Yeah. This season, it's interesting that this is the complete flip. So yeah, it's got the highest peaks and troughs. Okay. I think the conspiracy is pretty strong throughout this, however.
Yes, I mean, I actually did put down one conspiracy episode as one of the episodes I really liked.
I think I've got 2.
Okay, so do you want to go for your top 5 first?
Do you want them in descending order?
Yes, yeah. Number 5.
Tunguska.
Number 4.
Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man.
Number 3.
Leonard Betts.
I'm actually surprised, but number 2...
I'm surprised. I love Leonard Betts.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
All right.
Yeah. Number 2.
Paper Hearts.
And number 1.
Memento Mori.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to give yours before we discuss them?
Yeah, okay.
5.
I put Home.
Okay.
Yeah.
4.
Unre.
3.
Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man.
2.
Tunguska.
Okay. 1.
Paper Heart.
Oh, you went with Paper Hearts in first. I went with Memento Mori because I think as a character study, Memento Mori gives such fantastic development to both Mulder and Scully as characters.
That's true.
And their relationship together.
Yes, because usually we get one or the other. We don't usually get both.
Mm.
And it's Mulder's faith versus Scully's science.
Yeah, I think it's a really nicely written... It's a very slow burn episode, but for development for the two of them, particularly together in their relationship, it's a really good one.
I think the other bit, and it doesn't get much mention, you've got a big thing for Skinner, which is directly into Zero Sum.
Mm.
And this is actually probably far more putting Skinner onto Mulder's side than anything he's done in the past.
Yeah. It's so good. It's one of those episodes that you can't really recommend to people as this is a good first episode to start because it's so entrenched with everything else. But for people who've been following the series to this point, it's really satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
But in the conspiracy ones, Leonard Betts and Musings for me for my favourite Monster of the Week episodes in the series. Leonard Betts, I said when we watched it, it's one of my favourite episodes overall. I think it's really good, well-written, fantastically memorable villain. Like I mentioned even earlier in this thing, it's even years on now going back, I remember that episode so vividly. And Musings, I know a lot of fans, it's Marmite, people love it or hate it, but again, it's such a nice balance and such an interesting kind of character study for the Cancer Man.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought Musings was great the first time I saw it, and I've liked it ever since. And I do appreciate people feel different about it now, but that is a conversation, much like we've alluded to a few times, a conversation we have to have much further down the road. We don't like it either.
Mm.
But in terms of, that's not how this episode was constructed, and it's not how a few later episodes are constructed. They were intended to have what happened to them happen to them.
Mm.
It's not really fair to hold them responsible for that.
Yeah, true.
We'll blame Chris Carter for what does happen. So the different ones, though, were like Unre and Home. And Home is one of the biggest transformations for me, given I do remember hating it the first time I watched it, writing it off as just a really bad Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of tribute. But on rewatch, it's still that, but it's also got that pitch black humor running through it. And it's all Mulder and Scully's fault that anything happens. They're instrumental in causing this disaster to unfold as a result of prying into someone else's business they didn't need to.
I think in my head, and I'll get to a bit when we get to episodes I don't like, which might be spoiling something a bit for you, but the counterpart of Home is Small Potatoes, because we've got two kind of blackly comical episodes built around a dark subject matter, but but Home works for me and Small Potatoes doesn't.
Absolutely.
Because, as I said before, Small Potatoes hasn't aged well, and I don't find the kind of making light of rape essentially very funny.
No.
But Home is also built around a really dark kind of murder, nasty, inbred, hillbilly sort of storyline we've got there. But that one works.
I think some of the crux of that is Mrs. Peacock and the fact that she is so central to what's happening. And it's the way that the women in Small Potatoes absolutely aren't.
Yeah, I like Home a lot. If I'd gone further, I would have added that. Unruhe for me. As I mentioned when we had our Unruhe episode, I'm scared to death of that episode. It really unsettles me. It makes me really uncomfortable. And although it's a very effective episode because of that, I can't call it one of my favourites.
True, I'm going for appreciating it as a bit of horror writing. Is that this is absolutely effective writing. This is gets under your skin. This is uncomfortable to watch. There is enough give in what's going on for you to come up multiple ways. Because we disagreed on exactly what ultimately was going on and what that last picture that he produced was.
Yes.
And I wanted to see it one way and you were quite happy with how it went. So it's a well-constructed episode. And I am worried I'm getting too much into the whole, if Vince can write it, it's great. But at the same time, it was Morgan and Wong who did Home, at least.
Yeah.
So, and you, what your conspiracy take was?
On which?
Your favourites.
Oh, my two conspiracy episodes I noted were Memento Mori and Tunguska.
Okay, so we go to I also had Tunguska, so we'll talk about Tunguska.
I want to specifically say as well, because sometimes I've cheated and put the second half into...
Yeah. This is just the
This
first
is just
half.
Tunguska. Yeah. I don't think Terma is as strong.
No. I think Tunguska, it half feels like I'd include it because it involves black oil, because I just like the black oil. But, no, I think like you said as well, this one's different to a lot of the other two-part conspiracy episodes, because we have noticed the second part is usually weaker. But we haven't seen one that just fell apart like Terma before. And this has got all the build-up, all the momentum, lots of intrigue, and it's even got a framing device not dissimilar to how Gethsemane works. With Scully reporting something and then we flash back to what brought her to that position.
Are you trying to say Gethsemane again?
I really can't say it. But yeah, absolutely, Tunguska is a fantastic episode. And, Krychek, what's not to love? Other than it's got Marita in it, and we've decided we don't like Marita.
Yeah.
At all.
I feel bad for her. It's not the actress, it's just she's such a badly written character.
Yeah, and
I think Laurie Holden does fine with what she's got.
She does. I think that's the ultimate problem with it is she's a bad character, but we're going to very clear, not Laurie Holden's fault. This is entirely down to the script writers and the directors and everything else. Is they're not playing to her strengths. They also, I feel, do not know what to do with her. They've said Mulder needs a new contact. We don't quite know what to do with her after Deep Throat X. We haven't figured out a third way to do an informant. So, what was the general feedback, though?
It's kind of interesting because there were actually a lot of episodes that people named as the best ones, though we've wound up with a 5-way tie this time for the best one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so for the 5-way tie for the best, to give some of the honourable mentions, some people mentioned Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man. I had Terma, Demons, Tempus Fugit, Unruhe. What else have I got? Sanguinarium.
Sanguinarium?
Yep. All mentioned, given honourable mentions for people's favourites. But the ones that people kind of had as the tie, we had Home.
Okay.
Small Potatoes. Leonard Betts.
Okay.
Paper Hearts.
Okay.
And Max. Specifically Max. More people said Max was their favourite than Tempus Fugit.
Wait, that's the second part?
That's the second part, yeah.
Hmm.
I think I'd go with Tempus Fugit
I would go with
Max,
Tempus
to be
Fugit,
honest.
but I wouldn't really count either of them because, again, it feels like a stopgap one. Okay.
Yeah, I thought Max might surprise you.
It does surprise me a bit. So, well, I think at least there's some variance there, but at least from the right kind of same territory as everyone else with weird outliers. But I think the interesting one of the season then, because we're going to get to the trough. We struggle to get people down to the trough normally, but everyone decided to jump down in here with us.
I've got to admit as well is that I said I'd narrow it down to my 5 least favourite episodes, but I've even got some honourable mentions.
Well, I've got 5 and 4 honourable mentions.
Oh, 4. I had 2 honourable mentions.
Oh, okay, this would be fun. Yeah. Okay, so number 5.
Okay, I'm going to go in 5th place, small potatoes.
Okay.
You know, I know a lot of people like it. I don't like small potatoes. My problem is that I think that if they'd chosen any other subject matter than rape, it would have been a very funny episode. But that's what tarnishes it for me.
And I think the most charitably is time has moved on. This was, and it is really bad and damning with memory and everything, that this was seen as acceptable in 1997. And maybe it shouldn't have been, but maybe it was, but it isn't anymore.
No. Okay, number 4. I'm going to go with The Field Where I Died.
Oh, okay.
You know, my feelings towards The Field Where I Died.
Well, it was not kind to that episode either. I do not. Well, no, I understand exactly why fandom likes it. I don't think it's a good reason. Number 3.
Unrequited.
Okay.
Just because it's
so boring.
It's so boring, yeah. That's mainly it. Number 2 is Never Again.
Okay.
Again, it just falls flat for me. It doesn't work.
I think I can guess number 1, but go on.
Toliko.
Absolutely.
If you want my honourable mentions as well.
I do, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to go with El Mundo Gira.
Yep.
And Sanguinarium.
Very fair.
Because, again, Sanguinarium, if it was a horror movie, perhaps, but it just doesn't feel like an X-Files episode at all. It's just way too grisly, you know, doesn't really... Mulder and Scully just kind of go with the flow in it and don't really investigate anything. I don't think it's a strong one.
I would say, actually, given your reaction to Sanguinarium normally, I'm surprised it wasn't actually higher.
Yeah, admittedly, I originally put it second, but then I remembered Small Potatoes existed.
Okay.
And kind of reshuffled them a bit. But yeah, I just have a visceral dislike to Sanguinarium. Which is strange, because, you know, if it was a horror movie, I probably would have quite enjoyed it. It's just not what I expect from the X-Files. Go on, let's do your top 5 then.
Okay.
So 5.
Small Potatoes.
Mm-hmm. Same reasons as above?
Obviously, same reasons.
Yep.
Very clear.
4.
Unrequited, for exactly the same reasons.
3.
Never Again. Mostly because I'm convinced Morgan and Wong were trying to burn down the series on their way out. I can't explain it. I don't understand how that episode happened. It's really strange.
No, I'm with you. 2.
I actually put Sanguinarium up here.
Oh, you'd put that one higher.
Again, I agree with, if this was a low-budget horror movie, no problem. It doesn't belong in this series again. This is weird. It's weird this one got made. I don't understand it. Of course, number 1 is Teleco. Because, again, in episodes that probably should have been scrapped early on with, if nothing else, because this is Tooms. You've done this.
Tooms did it better, but we've also got the added layer of racial insensitivity over the top of it.
And baffling logic towards the end where they just go to that construction site because maybe that's where he is. My honourable mentions, because I said I have 4.
Oh, go on, what are you for?
So, Field Where I Died, for much the same reasons. I actually decided Termo deserved it for being such a disappointment after Tunguska.
Yeah.
El Mundo Gira, for much of the obvious reasons. Actually, Max was my last one.
Okay, fair enough.
Just because, again, I think Tempest Fugit, while I didn't really like what it was setting up, it could have gone somewhere, and I don't think Max paid off again. So, what do the listeners not like?
Okay, our honourable mentions as well, and it's the first 2 are kind of interesting because they overlap with the best episodes.
Oh my god.
Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man and Sanguinarium, both of which got votes for the best episode and the worst episode.
Yeah. And again, I wonder, I know there are some reasons why people don't like Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man that relate just to the episode. I am also aware that it has been tarnished with retcon as well.
I've got to admit, I think the poster, there was only one poster who mentioned Musings for the worst episode.
Okay.
Most people didn't mention it at all. But I don't think they said why they didn't like it. But yeah, it could be, as you say. I know it's not just the fact that it's been tarnished by future episodes, but I've seen arguments for it where people say it both reveals too much and too little, so it's all personal taste.
Yeah, I think the fact that you can say people saying too much, too little means that it's actually right on the margin of ambiguity it needs to be, and then if you think it's gone one way or the other, that's kind of your own problem.
For other honourable mentions, we had somebody who didn't like The Field Where I Died, we had Synchrony mentioned, we had Kaddish mentioned, The two that kind of had, almost hit the worst episodes were El Mundo Guerrero and Unrequited. Quite a few people mentioned them.
There's a lot of interesting consistency, I feel. There's some outliers, but mostly.
But the runaway worst episode, I think you'll be unsurprised to hear, is everyone agrees with us that it's Toliko.
Yeah, it's hard to even sit through it.
I think there was maybe only one person who didn't mention Toliko when they were posting about it, but yeah, virtually everyone said that that's absolutely the worst episode.
It's very interesting. After that?
So we've got the best villain list next.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but for me there was one runaway.
I have a sneaky suspicion it's the same one I've written down as well.
Is it Jerry Schnauz?
It is Jerry Schnauz. Again, this comes back to the whole appreciation of as a horror thing. This is someone who absolutely... You can't do anything with him.
Yeah, most people from our poll also mentioned Jerry Schnauz. I will cite, there is a Twitter user called Fox Mulder's Nick Shirt, who nicely worded this as, they're scary because if you think about it in terms of the threat they pose to Scully is a highly intelligent, highly kind of independent person. The fear of kind of reducing her to a vegetative state through a botched lobotomy is scarier than killing her. And that's what makes Jerry Schnauz kind of terrifying, is he's not just killing people, he's kind of completely disabling them in that way. All through the veil of he thinks that this is making their lives better. He's a terrifying, terrifying character.
Yeah.
But for the other honourable mentions, I think they're all pretty fair. I've got Leonard Betts. Somebody just commented as well that Leonard Betts was terrifying. Just that whole thing with like the head with his eyes moving and things like that. It's really scary and really memorable. The Cancer Man, of course.
An evergreen choice.
You've got John Roche, who was Paper Hearts.
Yep, he was pretty unpleasant.
Well, not to mention a paedophile and everything else. He was, I think, probably close second for the scariest villain in the series.
True, but I think have been deeming the best villain as one you can like, but one who doesn't come with that kind of baggage.
Yeah. You've got the Peacock brothers from Home.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that Mrs. Peacock is actually more of a villain than they are. Given they're just doing what she's telling them.
Though they have the wonderful, wonderful scene, the really violent,
but
nasty bit.
At her behest, so
True.
She's the power behind the throne kind of.
And the one that I thought that was most interesting that one person suggested was Scully's cancer, the biggest villain of the series.
This is one person who just does the outside the box answer every time. Is it the same person?
I don't know if it was the same person as last ones, but yeah, I like that. They're right.
They are right, yeah.
You could easily argue that Scully's cancer is the big villain of this series. I mean, it's such an underrunning plot point, and it's what's ultimately threatening Scully's life.
Very true.
So yeah, that was our polls for this time. I thought it was fairly interesting.
That was. I mean, again, it's interesting to have more engagement on the worst axis, because that's one we struggled with.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes when I've run these polls, I've only had one or two people who've responded and told me about their worst episodes. And as I said, I get it. If you're a huge fan of the series, you want to remember the good parts more than the bad parts.
Yeah.
Unless you're Nick, in which case you've got a list of somehow more episodes than there are in the series that you don't like.
I have not got that. Most of them. Not all. More than. Okay. So next week, we enter Season 5.
With Redux Part 1 and 2.
With Redux Part 1 and 2. And a shortened season. This one is like 20 episodes, I think. It's actually shorter than normal.
Is it to make way for the film?
It is to make way for the film. So, yeah, this is now going to be a long run-up to hitting the film, which I still call Fight the Future, but no one else wants to call Fight the Future, apparently. I don't know why I've hung on to it as Fight the Future, because it was at one stage.
I think that's my next novella as well, because now I've got to past the point where people wrote novellas of individual episodes. I've just got the films left.
If you'd like to get hold of us in the meantime, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
Alternatively, you can find us on social media. On Twitter and Tumblr, we are GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universadon.com. And on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. Additionally, if you're not sick of my voice by now, I also have a stream on Twitch. My username there is Dire Not Dire. That's DYER, not DIRE. You can find me on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. BST or Saturdays at 5 p.m. BST. I run for about 2.5 hours at a time, and I just play through whatever I'm currently playing on the PS5, which is currently One Piece Odyssey.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where our first episode of our Let's Play of the first X-Files game is up. Soon to be replaced. We are now getting into a clearer space where we can actually do that, fortunately.
Yeah, we've got a few free weekends to play through that old game.
Yay! We can do it. We can find that bullet in the warehouse again.
Oh god, the bullet in the warehouse. It took me 2 hours last time. At least I know vaguely where it is for this run through.
And I don't think any other part of it is quite as bad as that, I think.
I remember from, admittedly, we didn't play much past the bullet in the warehouse when we had our first shot at it, so I can't vouch, but I seem to remember when I played it through as a teenager that after I found the bullet in the warehouse, nothing was as horrible.
Yes.
We'll soon find out. Our Patreon has 3 tiers. They're all at various prices and you get different perks for doing so. But if you back us at any tier, you will have access to the Let's Play and any extra specials that we are planning to do in the future, which won't otherwise be available to you.
This will include the other game, the books, the comics, the trading card game, if we can get hold of it, any board games, deck builders, or any other X-Files ephemera that we can lay our hands on.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Our theme music is envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember...
Believe the lie.